The next time I saw Chase Reed, it was at a little guest house in the Rockies. I'd just finished feeding my son breakfast and was wiping his mouth when Chase came out from the kitchen carrying a tray. Our eyes met. I saw his pupils dilate in shock. 3 years had passed. His skin was weathered and reddened from the sun, his face covered in stubble, with new lines etched around his eyes from the harsh elements. Then his gaze landed on my son. He froze mid-step, his eyes going wide with disbelief before flooding with joy. He hurried over, his eyes locked on my little boy. "Sweetheart, can you say daddy?" I lowered my head, turned sideways, and pulled my son protectively into my arms. 3 years ago, when I was 5 months pregnant, Chase had felt trapped. He decided to hit the road with his buddy, a female friend, and bike across the Rockies. He told me to cut off all contact and give him 3 years of freedom. From that day on, I cut everything about him out of my life, including our child. In my arms, my son blinked, puzzled. "Mommy, who's that man?" "Nobody. Don't listen to him. Let's go." I scooped him up and turned to leave. After Chase Reed left, I'd gotten rid of the baby I'd been carrying and married someone else. My husband and I were happy together, deeply in love. The son in my arms had nothing to do with Chase. "Ivy, are you still mad at me? How can you keep a son from knowing his own father?" Chase blocked my path, his face dark with anger. I met his eyes, calm and unshaken. "We've been apart for 3 years. What makes you think you're his father? He isn't your son." Chase let out a sigh. "You're still holding it against me that I left for so long. But freedom is in my nature. I was never going to give it up for a child. I needed time to be myself." I held my son tighter and shook my head. "Chase, I'm not holding anything against you. I love my husband, and you and I have nothing left between us. Move." Back when we'd agreed to spend the rest of our lives together, I'd let him skip registering our marriage, all in the name of his precious freedom. Then I got pregnant, and he was still off cycling with his buddy, every chance he got. Morning sickness, leg cramps, sleepless nights. I endured all of it alone. Even so, he complained behind my back to Monica Cole about how stressful my pregnancy was making his life. The two of them hit it off immediately and decided to spend 3 years cycling out to the Rockies. When it came to childbirth and raising a kid, Monica told him not to worry about it. That women just handled that instinctively. Chase believed her. By the time I was 5 months along, I could barely move without pain. I went to the hospital for treatment, and when I came back, they were gone. Not even a word goodbye. That was the moment I made my decision. Shaking, I turned around and walked straight back to the hospital, and had the pregnancy terminated that same day. I've thanked myself for that courage ever since. If I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have the life I have now. Sensing how cold I'd gone, Chase frowned. "There you go again, talking like you're still bitter. You must still care about me somewhere in there. Otherwise, why bring the kid to find me before the 3 years were even up?" I thought I'd made myself more than clear, but none of it seemed to reach him. I insisted he get out of my way. Finally, looking as though he were making some agonizing concession, he said, "Fine. For the kid's sake, if you fix that attitude of yours, I'll let you two tag along. But I don't have the energy to look after you both. Don't get in the way of my plans." I glanced over his temp job uniform. He was probably picking up odd jobs wherever the road took him. Following him would mean nothing but hardship. I wasn't going to waste any more time on him. I moved to walk around him with my son in my arms, but he threw out an arm and blocked me. His voice turned urgent. "Ivy, what are you doing?" "Whatever you say, I'm still his father." My son couldn't help lifting his head, glancing between the two of us, and asking with innocent confusion, "Mommy, why do I have 2 daddies?" Chase's expression froze. "2 daddies? What do you mean 2 daddies?" My son tightened his arms around my neck and explained earnestly, "I already have a daddy. That's who we came here to find." The blood drained from Chase's face. He stood frozen, pupils trembling, too stunned to speak. "You already have a daddy?" My son nodded firmly. Then, as if something had clicked, Chase spun back to me, his eyes full of accusation. "Is this how you've been raising him? Even the kid knows he came here to find me, and I'm standing right here, and you still won't let him call me dad." We had come to find the boy's father, but that didn't mean the father was Chase. Even when I was carrying Chase's child, I'd never seen him show this much concern. And now, standing in front of him was a son that belonged to another man. I had no idea where this obsession of his was coming from. I frowned and raised my voice. "Chase, listen carefully. I got married a long time ago. This isn't your son." Still playing tough. A flicker of anger crossed Chase's face. What could you possibly gain from keeping a boy from his own father? Just then, a voice I recognized cut in. "You're still picking fights with Chase, huh? 2 daddies. Don't go warping the poor kid's head." The tone was teasing, but mockery ran underneath it. I looked toward the doorway. Monica. She strolled over, laughing easily, and clapped Chase on the shoulder. "A weak woman like her can't raise a kid properly. Now that you're back, you can teach him right." Chase looked at my son and nodded. "That's right. I'll teach him the right values, and I'll take him out to chase freedom with me. Let him really experience nature. I nearly laughed out loud inside. They had no idea. My son had lived a life of comfort and the best education there was since the day he was born. He loved the cello, so my husband had commissioned him a custom handmade instrument and hired one of the most respected professors from the conservatory to teach him. Once he was a little older, we'd take him traveling around the world, cultivating his character through music, exploring every corner of the globe. My husband was nothing like Chase, who'd thrown everything away to go live like some drifter in the wild. Mommy, he's going to teach me? Does he even play cello? My son tugged at my sleeve, thoroughly confused. Chase's expression shifted, as if he'd just heard something outrageous. Cello? Performances too. His voice was thick with disbelief. Where would you even get the money for that? I looked him dead in the eye, the corner of my mouth curling. My husband happens to be very rich. Chase's lips moved a few times before any words came out, his expression a mess. You actually married someone else. He stared at me, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Don't fall for it, huh? Monica burst out laughing. She's just trying to get under your skin. She wants you to think she and the kid are doing just fine without you. At that, the tension in Chase's face eased. You can't joke about things like that anymore. I don't have time for these games with you. And don't think that just because I still care, you get to control me. I'm doing great on my own, and I don't need you managing my life. Same goes for the kid. Just let him play and be a kid, let him be free. I hadn't even gotten a word of protest out before my son poked me. Right, Mommy, when are we going out to play? We're running out of time. At the same moment, someone shouted Chase's name from the direction of the kitchen. Go play then, son. Do whatever you want. Freedom's what matters most. Chase tossed that out and hurried off toward the kitchen. Monica arched an eyebrow, the contempt in her eyes no longer hidden. Can't survive without a man around, can you? 3 months left on your 3 years, and you already can't hold out. I felt nothing at all. I've said it plenty of times already. Chase and I have nothing left between us. I have my own family. Tell him to have some self-respect. With that, I took my son and walked straight out of the dining area. Back in my room, Nathan Sterling called. His voice, warm and gentle, put me at ease almost instantly. How's the place treating you, honey? Anything you're not happy with? I'll have the manager fix it. I thought about the unpleasantness earlier, but didn't mention it. We'd be leaving tomorrow anyway, no point causing trouble for the manager over it. Everything's great. Rowan loves it here. We can't wait to see you. Nathan chuckled softly. Good. I'll be there to meet up with you too soon. Mwah. A kiss for my darling wife, and mwah, a kiss for our darling son. Whatever cloud had settled over me instantly cleared. After changing, I took my son out for the afternoon. We bought a small mountain of souvenirs, which the 2 guides I'd hired carried for us. By evening, when we got back to the guest house, Monica was sprawled in the courtyard. The second she spotted us, she curled her lip. Spending money like that. Chase's money's just that easy to burn through, huh? Chase was sweeping nearby. The moment he saw my son, he plastered on a smile and reached for him. I pulled my son behind me instantly, and the 2 guides dropped what they were carrying and stepped between us. Chase's hand froze midair. What's your problem? I'm his father, he snapped. Watching him act so righteous about it, I could only think how absurd it was. My position couldn't have been clearer. I had a family, and my son wasn't his. Yet he was still drowning in his own delusion. I challenged him. Fine. Then tell me his name. Chase choked. Pure panic flooded his eyes. Even the child I'd once carried for him, he'd never once thought to name. After a long silence, my son poked his head out and said in his bright, clear voice, I'm Rowan Sterling. I was born in the fall. Chase's eyes went wide, shock and confusion flashing across his face, his hands trembling. That timing, there's no way this kid was born in autumn. No way. Oh please. Monica sneered. Ivy, you're still trying to prove some big romantic thing between you and Chase, huh? You women really do overdo it. Rowan obviously commemorates the autumn we set off cycling. Chase seized on that like a lifeline and nodded hard at Monica. That's right. I said coldly. No need for that. My son was simply born in autumn. If some people can't take a hint, that's not my problem. Chase's eyes hardened. Ivy, you can't be so rude to Monica. Chase. The guest house manager came jogging over, his expression stern. I let you work here alone in exchange for housing 2 people. I've already been more than generous. You will not bother my guests. Get back to work or get lost. Chase's face went pale, then flushed under the scolding. His fists clenched, but in the end he lowered his head sullen. So this was how considerate he was toward Monica, working to pay for her stay. It had never once occurred to him that I, pregnant, might have needed that same consideration. Whether the man had a heart in him at all, I honestly couldn't say. Escorted by the guides and the manager, we made it back to our room. Tomorrow we'd leave, and Chase would never see us again. That night, I sat with my son on our room's small balcony, looking at the stars, and opened a bottle of peanut milk for him. He was happily cradling it, had just taken a small sip, when out of nowhere, Chase came scrambling over the railing in a frantic rush. He snatched the bottle from my son's hands and hurled it to the ground, then jabbed a finger at me, roaring, "Ivy, are you trying to kill our son? Everyone in the Reed family is allergic to peanuts. It runs in our blood. Giving him this? Are you out of your mind?" Chase's roar cut through the quiet night, harsh and jarring. Startled guests stepped out of their rooms, craning their necks to see what was happening. Monica came rushing out too, shrieking, "I know, right? That stuff could have killed him. You're way too extreme just to get Chase's attention." I looked at Chase's face, twisted with what he called fatherly love, and could only find it ironic. "Open your eyes and look. Does my son show a single sign of an allergic reaction?" I picked him up and rubbed soothing circles on Rowan's back. He'd clearly been startled, his little mouth still pouting, but his breathing was steady, his eyes clear, no trace of discomfort anywhere. Chase froze. The anger on his face melted into confusion and panic, and he started muttering to himself. "Everyone in the Reed family is allergic to peanuts, a few peanuts, and we can barely breathe. My father, my grandfather, all of them. How could he not?" Monica jumped in, reassuring him with total confidence. "Even a beast doesn't devour its own cub. Maybe he just didn't drink enough of it. Not a big enough dose to matter. My son has never once been allergic to peanuts." I cut off her speculation, my voice flat and final. "There's not a single drop of Reed blood in him. You two don't get a say in this." Chase gritted his teeth and shook his head, stubborn as ever. "No, I don't believe it." "Mommy," my son said, tilting his face up, his voice small. "Can I have some more? It's sweet. I want more." I stroked his hair gently. "Baby, it's too late to go buy more now. We'll have some tomorrow." "He can't have it." Chase's tone turned sharp. "I need to work hard and save up for the next leg of the trip. Why can't you ever just behave?" I let out a cold laugh. "You want your freedom and you wouldn't let me manage your life. But you think you get to manage mine? Don't I get any freedom of my own?" All in the name of the freedom he'd claimed for himself, he'd abandoned his wife and child without a second thought. I'd already parted ways with him completely, and he still refused to see it. The commotion finally brought the manager running, 2 burly staff members trailing behind him. "Chase Monica out. Now." Chase tried to argue, but the staff had already closed in, 1 on each side, hauling him off. "Ivy, he can't have any more. Do you hear me?" he shouted over his shoulder as they dragged him away, still refusing to back down. Monica stamped her foot, shot me one last venomous glare, and hurried after him. The world went quiet at last. Early the next morning, I took my son out to meet up with Nathan. To my surprise, Chase was posted outside the guest house gate like some kind of sentry, dark circles under his bloodshot eyes. He clearly hadn't slept. He stepped in front of me, his voice urgent, almost obsessive. "I need to know for certain if my son's okay. We should get him to the hospital right now for a full checkup." I gave him a cold glance. "Not necessary. Move." That's when my guides arrived. One of them pulled a bottle of peanut milk from his backpack and twisted off the cap. "Little man, you didn't get to finish your peanut milk last night, did you? Here you go." My son's eyes lit up, and he grabbed it eagerly. Before Chase could stop him, he was already gulping it down, several big swallows at once. He drained nearly half the bottle in one go, then set it down looking thoroughly satisfied, licking his lips with contentment. Not a single sign of trouble. "That's not possible. How is that possible?" The color drained out of Chase's face entirely, his eyes shaking in their sockets. He lost all reason and grabbed my son's arm, frantically checking his arms and neck over and over, searching for even the faintest hint of an allergic reaction. "No allergy, my son. How can he not be allergic?" Chase's voice trembled, his eyes bloodshot, his hands shaking violently. "How can you not be my son? Give him back to me." I snapped, trying to pull my son away from him. Right then, a voice rang out behind me, steady, powerful, etched with a cold that brooked no argument. "Let go. Who said you could touch my wife and son?" The voice was like a heavy velvet blanket soaking in ice water, deep, controlled, and sharp enough to cut glass. Chase's head snapped toward the path behind us. Nathan Sterling stepped out from behind a line of pine trees. He wore a charcoal gray cashmere sweater over a crisp white shirt, tailored trousers, and dark leather boots. He didn't look like he belonged in a dusty mountain guest house. He looked like he owned the mountain itself. Rowan's eyes lit up instantly. "Daddy." The little boy squirmed right out of my arms, his small boots hitting the gravel, and sprinted straight into Nathan's open arms. Nathan caught him with one smooth motion, tossing him up onto his shoulder before sweeping his free arm around my waist, pulling me firmly against his side. He pressed a warm, unhurried kiss to my temple. "Did you miss me, honey?" "Every second," I murmured, resting my head against his shoulder. The tight knot in my chest instantly dissolved. Chase stood frozen, his hands still suspended in midair where he'd tried to grab Rowan. His jaw worked silently, his bloodshot eyes darting from Nathan's custom-tailored clothes to the massive platinum ring gleaming on my left hand. A ring that bore a cushion-cut diamond large enough to make Monica gasp behind us. You. Chase swallowed hard, his voice raspy and thin. Who the hell are you? Nathan didn't even look at Chase at first. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a soft linen handkerchief, and gently wiped a trace of peanut milk from Rowan's chin. Did you enjoy your breakfast, big guy? Yep. Rowan grinned, wrapping his little arms tightly around Nathan's neck. Mommy let me have the sweet milk, and that strange man tried to snatch it, but I drank it all. Only then did Nathan turn his gaze onto Chase. There was no bluster in Nathan's eyes, no dramatic anger. Just the cool, crushing indifference of a man looking at an insect on his windshield. I am Ivy's husband, Nathan said quietly. And Rowan's father. You have 5 seconds to remove your hands from my family's presence before I let my security team explain the laws of personal space to you. 2 massive black SUVs pulled up silently behind Nathan, their engines idling, with a low, heavy rumble. 4 men in dark suits stepped out, instantly fanning out to block the path. Monica's face went white. She took an involuntary step back, clutching her elbows, her eyes wide with sudden terror. Chase, let's go. These people aren't playing around. But Chase was drowning in his own refusal to accept reality. He took a furious step forward, pointing a trembling finger at Nathan. Don't play games with me, Chase shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. I know Ivy. She loved me for 5 years. She was carrying my baby when I left. The math adds up. The kid is 3 years old. He's my son. Nathan didn't flinch. He didn't even look surprised. He simply tightened his arm around my waist, his expression filled with a quiet, profound pity. Your baby, Nathan murmured, the words laced with a terrifying edge of quiet contempt. You think Ivy spent 3 years waiting in the dirt for a boy who runs away to ride bicycles whenever life gets uncomfortable? She did. Chase yelled, his chest heaving under his dusty temp job shirt. She's doing this to punish me. Ivy, tell him. Tell him you're just mad because I went to the Rockies. Tell him the truth. I looked at Chase. Really looked at him. His skin was rough and sun-damaged, his fingernails caked with dirt from sweeping the guest house yard, his clothes smelling faintly of sweat and stale pine. 3 years ago, he'd called this living authentically. He'd called responsibility a cage and commitment a sickness. And now, looking at the life I had built without him, he looked pathetically, utterly small. Chase, I said, my voice as steady as a mountain lake. You want the truth? Fine. Let's talk about the truth. I took a small step forward, standing beside Nathan. 3 years ago, when I was 5 months pregnant, I said, looking straight into Chase's bloodshot eyes, I started bleeding. Chase's pupils contracted violently. I called your phone 32 times in 2 days, I continued quietly. You didn't answer because you and Monica were off the grid in a canyon taking photos of the sunset. When you finally picked up, do you remember what you said to me? Chase's lips moved, but no sound came out. You told me I was being overly dramatic, I said. You told me pregnancy was a natural biological process, and that women had been giving birth in caves for thousands of years. You said my anxiety was suffocating your spirit, and that you needed space. Beside me, I felt Nathan's entire body go rigid. His grip on my waist tightened, his jaw clenching so hard a muscle twitched in his cheek. I went to the hospital alone, I said. The doctor told me I was at high risk for severe complications if I carried to term without absolute rest and peace of mind. But when I got home from the clinic, hoping against hope that you'd at least left a note. The apartment was completely empty. Your bikes were gone. Your clothes were gone. And you left a message on the kitchen counter. See you in 3 years. Don't look for me. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the dirt driveway. Monica shrank back further, hiding behind a wooden post, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. So, I continued, staring into Chase's pale, sweat-streaked face, I made a choice. I realized that a man who abandons his child before it's even born will only bring that child a lifetime of neglect and disappointment. I didn't want my baby to ever have a father like you. Chase's breath hitched violently. What are you saying? I walked right back into that hospital the very next morning. I whispered. And I terminated the pregnancy. The words hit the gravel like heavy iron weights. Chase stumbled backward as if he'd been physically struck in the chest. His boots caught on a tree root, and he crashed heavily onto his rear in the dirt, his mouth hanging open, his eyes wide and completely hollow. No, he gasped, shaking his head frantically. No. You wouldn't. You loved that baby. You were buying baby clothes. You showed me the ultrasound. I loved the idea of a family, I corrected him. Until you proved that building a family with you was built on sand. I had the procedure done, Spent 2 weeks recovering alone. And then I buried every single trace of you. I turned my head to look at Nathan. A soft, genuine smile broke across my face. 6 months later, I met Nathan. He didn't ask me to sacrifice my health for his freedom. He didn't run away when things got hard. We married, and a year later, God blessed us with Rowan. Rowan is biologically, legally, and emotionally Nathan's son, I said, looking back down at Chase, who was sitting in the dirt, clutching his head. He has never known a single day without a father who adores him. You are nothing to him. You are nothing to me. You killed my child. Chase suddenly shrieked, scrambling to his feet like a madman, his hands clawing at his hair. You killed my baby and had another man's kid. Nathan stepped smoothly in front of me, his massive frame completely blocking Chase from my view. You killed that child the moment you walked out the door, Reed, Nathan said, his voice dropping into a register so dark it made the surrounding air feel freezing cold. You traded your wife and unborn child for a bicycle ride. Now, you have your freedom. Enjoy it. Nathan turned his back on him, opening the door of the lead black SUV. He helped me into the plush leather interior, strapped Rowan into his safety seat, and stepped inside beside us. As the heavy door sealed shut, cutting off the outside world in absolute acoustic silence, I saw Chase through the tinted glass, running after the vehicle, screaming hysterically, his arms flailing in the dust as the guards shoved him roughly out of the driveway. The SUV glided smoothly up the winding mountain road, toward the private Sterling estate, a magnificent timber and glass chalet nestled high above the tree line. Inside the car, Rowan was already distracted, happily pushing buttons on a tablet Nathan had handed him, listening to a classical symphony. Nathan reached across the leather seat and took my hand, wrapping his long, warm fingers around mine. His thumb stroked my knuckles with gentle, steady rhythm. Are you okay, honey? He asked softly. I looked at his sharp, handsome profile, the quiet devotion in his dark eyes, and let out a long, peaceful breath. I'm better than okay. I feel like a weight I didn't even know I was holding just dropped off my chest. Nathan brought my hand to his lips, pressing a tender kiss against my knuckles. Good. Because I'm not letting anything ruin our vacation. The cello professor arrives tomorrow morning, and I booked a private helicopter tour over the glacier for the afternoon. I smiled, resting my head on his broad shoulder. You spoil us. That's my job, he murmured into my hair. While our world was filled with warmth and luxury, down at the valley floor, Chase's world was tearing apart at the seams. After being kicked out of the guest house by the manager for causing a massive disturbance, Chase and Monica were forced to drag their heavy gear down the dirt road toward a cheap, rundown roadside motel. The room smelled of damp carpet and stale tobacco. Chase sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, staring at his filthy hands in total paralyzed shock. His mind was repeating my words on an endless, agonizing loop. I terminated the pregnancy. I buried every single trace of you. He has never known a single day without a father who adores him. She lied. Chase muttered out loud, his voice raspy and hollow. She's lying to get back at me. Women don't just kill their own babies. She's just saying that because she married that rich guy. Monica was sitting at the laminate desk, furiously trying to repair a broken zipper on her backpack. Hearing him, she let out a loud, contemptuous snort. Oh, shut up, Chase. Are you still crying over her? Monica spat, tossing her pliers onto the desk with a loud clatter. You saw the way she looked at you. She looks at you like you're trash on the side of the road. And honestly, look at you. You are trash. Chase raised his head, his bloodshot eyes staring at her in disbelief. What did you say? I said you're a loser. Monica sneered, stepping closer, her face twisted with bitter annoyance. For 3 years, you kept talking about your artistic soul and your need for freedom. I thought you were some brooding, independent guy with a cool philosophy, but you're just a broke, lazy bum who can't even hold down a job at a guest house. I did that job to pay for your room. Chase roared, springing off the bed, his fists clenching. I worked 6 hours a day scrubbing toilets so you could sit in the courtyard and drink coffee. Because you promised to take care of me, Monica yelled back, poking him hard in the chest. You told me we were free spirits. But look at Ivy. She's riding around in $200,000 custom SUVs, wearing diamonds the size of walnuts, married to a guy who looks like a movie star. And what do I get? A $5 motel room that reeks of mold. She was my wife. Chase screamed, tears finally spilling over his sunburnt cheeks. She was carrying my child. And I left her for you. You didn't leave her for me, you idiot. Monica laughed hysterically, a harsh, mocking sound. You left her because you were scared of being a father. You were scared of paying bills. You used me as an excuse to run away. Don't try to pin your pathetic choices on me. The brutal truth hit Chase like a physical blow. He stood there, panting, looking at Monica's angry, sneering face. The romantic illusion of their 3-year journey of freedom dissolved completely, leaving behind nothing but cold, ugly reality. They hadn't been free spirits. They had been 2 selfish parasites running away from adulthood. 3 days passed. Our time at the Sterling Mountain Estate was absolute paradise. Rowan spent his mornings practicing simple cello arpeggios on his mini instrument, his eyes glowing with excitement as the conservatory professor praised his natural rhythm. In the afternoons, Nathan took us out to the private alpine meadows, teaching Rowan how to identify wild clover and mountain birds. Every moment was filled with laughter, security, and quiet, luxurious peace. I had completely forgotten Chase Reed even existed. Until Friday morning. Nathan had taken Rowan down to the resort's private equestrian center to see the horses, while I stayed back at the main lodge to finish a video call with my design studio back home. When I finished the call and stepped out onto the lodge's grand stone terrace, I saw a commotion near the security gate at the bottom of the private driveway. A figure was struggling against 2 heavy iron gates, screaming at the top of his lungs. It was Chase. He looked unrecognizable. His hair was wild and unwashed, his clothes were torn and covered in dust, and his eyes were sunken, dark circles hollowed deep into his skull. He looked like a man who hadn't slept or eaten in days. I walked down the paved path toward the gate, accompanied by 2 of Nathan's security detail. When Chase saw me approaching, he threw himself against the iron bars, his hands grasping at the metal like a prisoner. Ivy, please, he sobbed, his voice raw and broken. Please talk to me. Just 5 minutes. I'm begging you. I stopped 10 feet away from the gate, keeping my hands tucked comfortably into the pockets of my cream cashmere cardigan. Chase, how did you even find this place? I asked around. I followed the SUV. He gasped, tears cutting dirty tracks through the dust on his cheeks. Ivy, I haven't slept in 3 days. I can't eat. Every time I close my eyes, all I hear is you telling me you aborted our baby. It wasn't your baby once you abandoned it, I said calmly. It was just a medical consequence of a mistake I made. It was our mistake, he cried out, his knuckles turning white on the iron bars. I was stupid, Ivy. I was terrified. I thought having a kid meant my life was over. I thought I'd be stuck in an office forever, paying mortgages and changing diapers. I didn't realize what I was giving up. He dropped to his knees right there on the asphalt outside the gate, bowing his head against the cold iron. I went back to the old apartment building yesterday, he wept, his shoulders shaking violently. I called the landlord. He told me you sold the place 3 years ago. He told me you threw away everything I left behind. My old sketchbooks, my cycling trophies, my clothes, you put it all in the dumpster. Of course I did, I said. Why would I keep garbage in my home? Chase looked up, his bloodshot eyes staring at me in pure, agonizing devastation. Ivy, I was wrong. I don't want freedom anymore. Freedom is empty. It's cold. There's nothing out there on the road except dirt and loneliness. Please, I'll do anything. I'll get a real job. I'll work 16 hours a day. Just tell me there's a chance. Tell me you still remember who we used to be. I looked down at him. In the past, if I had seen him crying like this, my heart would have broken into 1,000 pieces. I would have cooked his favorite soup, rubbed his shoulders, and told him everything was going to be okay. Now, I felt nothing. Not anger, not hatred, not even disgust. Just a profound, absolute zero. Chase, I said softly, do you know what the hardest part of a 5-month pregnancy is? He blinked, tears pouring down his nose. It's feeling the baby kick for the first time, I said quietly, and knowing that the man who helped create that life is thousands of miles away, taking photos of mountains with another woman, telling her how suffocating his wife is. Chase let out a choked, horrific gasp, clutching his chest as if he were dying. I cried all my tears for you 3 years ago on a hospital bed, I said. There is nothing left of the Ivy you knew. She died the day you left. The woman standing in front of you is Nathan Sterling's wife, and I am happier than I ever thought possible. I turned my back on him. Guards, I said smoothly to the 2 men beside me, issue a formal trespass warning. If he steps foot on this property again, call the sheriff. Ivy, Chase's shrieks echoed through the pine trees behind me, desperate, pathetic, and entirely ignored. Don't leave me, Ivy, please. I kept walking, my heels clicking softly against the stone path, stepping back into the warmth of my home. The next day, we prepared to leave the Rockies. Our private jet was scheduled to depart from the regional airfield at 2 in the afternoon. Nathan had arranged for a convoy of 3 cars to escort us down the mountain road. Rowan was sitting in the back seat between Nathan and me, happily showing us a drawing he'd made of a mountain horse. Look, Daddy. I drew his mane brown, just like the real one. That's beautiful, buddy, Nathan smiled, ruffling his hair. We'll frame it when we get back to the estate in New York. As our convoy reached the lower highway near the town center, traffic slowed to a crawl. A small crowd of locals and tourists had gathered near the gas station. At the junction, pointing and whispering. Nathan glanced out the window, his eyes darkening slightly, though he quickly shifted his body to block Rowan's view. I looked out my window. Standing on the dusty sidewalk outside the gas station was Chase. He was being led away in handcuffs by 2 local sheriff's deputies. His clothes were filthy, his hair matted, his face pale and bruised. On the ground behind him lay a broken bottle of cheap whiskey and a torn backpack. Beside him, Monica was screaming at the officers, trying to explain that they hadn't stolen anything, but the gas station owner was pointing angrily at a shattered display case. Apparently, after being kicked out of the motel for failing to pay, Chase had tried to steal alcohol and food from the station, resulting in a physical altercation with the clerk. As the deputy pushed Chase into the back of the police cruiser, Chase's eyes happened to catch our black SUV creeping past in the slow traffic. Through the dark-tinted glass, our eyes met for one final, brief second. He saw me. He saw Nathan sitting beside me, his arm wrapped securely around my shoulders. He saw Rowan laughing happily in his car seat, completely safe, completely cherished, completely protected from the filth and chaos of Chase's miserable reality. In that single second, I saw the absolute, total realization hit Chase Reed's soul. He had wanted freedom. He had demanded 3 years of absolute liberty, unbound by duty, unburdened by love, unbothered by the sacred responsibility of family. And he had gotten exactly what he asked for. He was entirely, utterly, permanently free. Free from a wife who would have loved him through sickness and health. Free from a child who would have called him daddy. Free from a home filled with warmth, music, and peace. He was free to spend his life wandering dirty roads, sleeping in cold cells, leeching off worthless companions, and drowning in the crushing, suffocating realization of what he had thrown away. A tear cut a clean line through the grime on his cheek as the police car door slammed shut, hiding his face forever. I slowly rolled up the leather window shade, blocking out the sight of the dusty highway. Nathan pulled me close, pressing his lips against my hair. Everything okay, honey? I looked at my husband, then down at my sweet, smiling son. Everything, I said, a deep, beautiful warmth filling my chest, is perfect. The SUV accelerated smoothly onto the open highway, leaving the mountain valley behind, driving straight toward a bright, endless future.